Hello everyone, friends. In this video I want to tell you how to finish a painting. In this case we already have the underpainting done and now we will start detailing it. Everything. I usually start the work with the most difficult part, which is the face. And then we'll move on to the clothes and the background. Cool. So I start by mixing the main colors that we'll need. This really makes our work much easier. During the second and third sessions, I usually work with soft brushes, synthetic ones, but for the first session, I use only bristle brushes. So look. On the palette, I have the main colors are ultramarine, cerulean blue, phthalo blue, Mars brown, dark, transparent umber, Leningrad natural, English red, crimson red, dark permanent. I'm starting with crimson red permanent. Next is ochre, then I think rose madder, cadmium red light, cadmium orange, and cadmium yellow medium. From these colors we mix the main colors. I usually do it like this. I mixed the main basic skin color. I haven't added white here yet, I'll add it now. So the main skin color is this peachy, the lightest pure one. I take it from three colors: yellow, scarlet, and red. And white. If you get more of a pink shade, then you need to add more yellow. If it's too yellow, then on the contrary, add more red, and you should get the peach color. You can see for yourself which shades you are getting on the model. Alright, we're mixing the color here and getting a more pinkish shade. I'm also mixing in some yellow. I'm not mixing everything in one spot. I try to spread the shades out in different directions so that from one batch we gradually get different shades. Look here, this one's more yellow, this one's more orange, that's how it turned out, and here it's more red. Then we add different colors here as needed. We gradually move to darker ones. Usually, when doing an underpainting, I start with the darkest colors. Well, first of all, it's practical, because the dark color, while our brushes aren't yet stained with white, allows us to work, meaning very dark work. It's best to lay in the darkest areas right away, and when we add light colors to the brush, it will already have our dark colors on it. Well, accordingly make them paler. In this case, we're already working on the details, so you can proceed however is convenient for you, especially depending on the subject. If there are colors missing, if it's too dark, like an underpainting, you start working with light colors right away. If there aren't enough darks, you immediately add the darks. In this case, I already want to start gradually adding purer colors, and in any case, the whole work will need to be developed completely. So into these colors, I'm already adding some dirtier ones. Well, we can add some pink, and with this pink we have Mars brown. Alright. Mix it, and we get different shades. And when I start mixing, at first I have a specific goal to get a certain color. I just mix different shades because there are so many in the face. Different colors, shades that... Exactly. To mix them specially, it would take a long time, and I just mix them practically. As I view the palette, I mix colors in various ways, creating different shades, brown, some even reddish. In some cases, just mix as much as possible. Need to get some medium mixes from pure colors, something in between. Here, I've already come closer with the blue. Don't be afraid to add your finger for sure. And more precisely, the colors turn out warm, shadowy, good colors that we need, grayish shades. Gray ones. The question often comes up, How do you make this like our natural ultramarine and Leningrad umber? Here I get a lot of shades. You squeeze the brush well on the palette so that nothing remains on it. Then I gradually switch to darker colors. Now I've already mixed many dirty shades. Now I add a little more burgundy. Brown is very often used with burgundy. So when we have a lot of shades that we might need, yes, then we look at which ones we still need to add to the portrait. Right now I see that we even lack some greenish tones, but look, ultramarine is for that. If you mix ultramarine with yellow, you get a dirty green, almost not even green. But if you mix phthalo blue with yellow, you'll get a much more distinct green color. And my brush is already dirty with brown. That's why it's better to use phthalo blue, but be very careful with phthalo blue. It's a very overpowering color. All the others are like this for us. Barely, there's a hint of greenish, but how can I explain we don't need a clearly green color? There's a greenish tint on the face. Next, well, I also see a nice reddish burgundy shade. There are colors with brown, you can pick those too, even with orange here. This stage is very important in order to get as many colors and shades as possible, so that later it will be faster and easier for us to work when we just take and add the shades that we are missing. So look, we ended up with this kind of palette of shades. Now, in this case, look, I am gradually still working from the underpainting, especially the face. In any case, everything must be reviewed again. No area will be left untouched. Because, well, first of all, the underpainting has dirtier colors everywhere in the shadows, and that's exactly what's needed, but it's the underpainting layer itself. It's the first layer, but it's kind of uneven, not very nice looking. So in any case, a portrait done in one layer turns out like this. Well, it doesn't look very appealing. So when we already have several layers of paint, first of all, the paint itself goes onto the canvas. It's much better, much nicer, smoother, the colors are purer in some places and you get a clearer, more controlled coverage. So that's it. So each portrait has at least 2 layers, but on average it's 3 or 4 layers, especially on the face. So that's it. And where do you start? Right now, I want to start out of habit. I want to begin with the darkest areas, but we don't have the darks yet, so for now, I'm just wiping it down thoroughly. With just a little bit more. So what are we going to do now? Well, I'm gradually finding the shades that we have here. For example, the underpainting is done quite accurately. Lately, I've been trying to make it more precise. This will make our future tasks easier. Look, those greenish ones that I used, the ones I mixed, even a bit more, just a little bluish. I actually feel like I'm missing just a bit of that here. How do we do it? We make these little test strokes, and if I see it's too dark, we can remove it with a finger. In any case, we need to do it. When we have a palette and a canvas, the color on the palette and the color on the canvas, especially on an underpainting, will always look different. The color is often perceived differently, because our eyes adjust depending on the surrounding surface. So in this case, well, we just gradually try things out, find where we have different shades using the help of our test brush strokes. And in this case, here's what I see we have. For example, this part is lighter now for the shades that we have here. Yes, I'll show you now. Here I take each shade that I need and accordingly I add it. When something is missing, like here where the hair disappears or the forehead is shadowed, it's lacking that specific dark burgundy or brown color. And gradually we blend it out with lighter colors. Already here while we're working. Well, refinement, that is the finishing session or one of the final sessions. Working out the details? Yeah, each brushstroke should already be more meaningful, more deliberate, because it could already become the final one. That's why now I first find the dark areas, where we still lack a bit. Then I will gradually move towards the light. That's how we do it. Here it's just a little bit darker and nothing more. When you're doing the underpainting, don't be afraid to mix the colors as much as possible, because on dirty colors, your clean colors at the finish will look much better. And in general, the base should be dirtier, more muted, so there aren't any bright bursts that would make it look unnatural. Now look at the details. More precisely, in terms of tone, yes, the work is done pretty closely. Even now, I can't find anything like that right now. Any mistakes? So if you don't really see any tonal mistakes at first glance, you can already start working on the details, immediately painting them in with a fine brush. But again, it depends on your style. Some people like bold, broad strokes, others prefer to smooth everything out in detail. It all depends on your style. Now, if someone doesn't know what their style is yet, you can simply look at different paintings and various techniques, whether with bold strokes or painted in great detail. Naturally, you'll be more drawn to and inspired by what you like the most. So I switched to finer brushes. Again, this is synthetic, I think it's size 2. And almost always starting with the eyes. So for the eyes, accordingly, we should already have a more precise, more accurate line, starting with the dark ones. Very often, while our brushes are still stained with white, this is our umber fellow blue and a bit towards the fisherman. We go over accordingly our dark lash line and the pupil. They are basically quite dark anyway, but going over them with fresh paint certainly won't hurt. And in the future, we'll still need to mix everything right now anyway. Next, the eyebrows are basically fine, but they're too dark. We need to add a bit more brown, orange, that kind of color along the edges. If there's an extra or unnecessary stroke somewhere, you can remove it with your finger, or erase and blend it, and then add more later. There's a highlight. Again, for now we're not using white. Look this part with your finger, and naturally, or with a dry brush, whatever is more comfortable for you. If it's a really small area, then use a brush, of course. If your finger fits, then your finger works perfectly. And now I've wiped the brush. It's not very neat, of course, but we're still blending everything. Alright. This area here was lightened for nothing. So for now, I guess we'll finish this session here. Maybe I want to add a bit more to the cheek here with the brush. And blend it into the shadows. Seven, fourth, fourth. Already like if it wasn't so often anymore, just do it. Well, that's basically enough. You've got enough. Okay. See you in the next video.